Thank you so much for being with the Rise with Diana podcast. We're so excited. We have a special guest here today. Simone Knego is an international speaker, award-winning author of the best-selling book, The Extraordinary Unordinary, and co-host of the globally ranked podcast, Her Unshakable Confidence. Y'all know in the Rise with Diana podcast, we like that, okay? She's alongside of her daughter, Olivia, which I like my daughter, Cece, and a two-time TEDx speaker. Her work has been featured on ABC, NBC, CSB, CBS. That's a little pronunciation issue. Entrepreneur Magazine and Yahoo News. Hey, Simone, sister girl, how are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you. How about you?
I am fantastic as always. And we started off with a little flub up, but we not letting that little juju mess us up. So
Nope.
listen, you talk about unshakable confidence. I love unshakable confidence. And also you talk about helping high achieving women. What really was the turning point for you that said, I need to dive into this?
So I am someone that struggled with self-doubt for years and years and years. And in my 40s, I was invited to do something completely out of my comfort zone, and I said yes. And what I said yes to was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
And it was really getting me out of my comfort zone, and I realized in that along that journey how important it was for me to believe in myself, really work on myself. I had let kind of other people's opinions kind of shaped me for a long time and
Mm,
didn't put myself first.
mm,
And I realized that how important it is for me to really put myself first. I have 6 kids. It doesn't mean that I'm not taking care of my family, but it means
yes.
that self-care is so important. And that was really a turning point for me where I realized what I was capable of.
Simone, this is something that we see often within our community is individuals who finally say, wait, okay, hold up, time out. But usually there's a catalyst. There's something that happened. There's something that shook that status quo and shifted you into not every day people wake up and say, I'm gonna go Mount Kilimanjaro. So Simone, what woke up in you?
So what I realized was, so when I was in high school, I had an abusive boyfriend and I
Mm,
kind of swept it under the rug. I talked about it to my husband and my kids. They knew about it, but nobody else, none of my friends. I really had this facade for so long that
mm,
I was supposed to be really strong because I was supposed to have it all together. That's what my friends thought. They thought like, oh, this woman has it all together. She's got 6 kids. And there was a day that I really just broke and I cried in front of them. And I don't think I had cried in 10 years because I had kept up
mm,
that facade.
wow,
And they were like, whoa, are you okay? And I was like,
mm,
I don't think I am. I think
mm,
I've been faking it for so long that I
mm,
don't really know who I am. And so, yeah, the idea of climbing Kilimanjaro, I was asked to do it. It was not a bucket list, but I think for so long I had been the yes girl. I would say yes to
mm,
everything. Do you need help with this? Yeah, yes, I'll help with that. Yes, I'll pick up your kid. Yes, I'll cook dinner. Whatever someone needed me to do, I said yes to. And I think that I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to have boundaries. And
mm,
so when I was asked to do this, I didn't want to disappoint anyone, right? So I
mm,
said yes. Then I researched what I was doing and I was like, oh my gosh, what did you get yourself into?
mm.
But it was a life-changing experience for me. So I truly believe that happened for a reason. It was what I needed in that moment of time.
Yeah, Simone, so take us back. I mean, you said you had this epiphany. About how old were you? What was your epiphany age?
42. 42.
42. That's
Yeah.
it's about the time, Rise with
Yeah.
Diana podcast land. People like, wait, wait.
Yeah.
I believe it's this thing called MNOPAUSE, which is like the preliminary part. You like, hold up, wait a minute, this ain't right. Because you started studying accounting, right?
Hmm.
You said, I'm gonna count, I'm gonna do some accounting, and this is how I'm gonna start. Now, were you doing accounting at that point? But take us back, like what let's start with this. What are some of your, like your superpowers you knew you're so good at, blah, blah, blah? What was that? And obviously, you went to accounting for a reason. Take us back and give us a little bit of your backstory.
So I went to accounting because I failed organic chemistry. My whole plan was to
Oh,
be
dang,
to be a
chemistry.
doctor. Yeah, it killed me.
Oh, because your
I
parents were doctors.
my parents were doctors. Yeah, so I failed. I took it again. I got a D and I said, okay, well, there goes medical school. So my dad said, and I was like, I want to be an actress. And my dad was like, well, while I'm paying the bills, you got to kind of be reasonable. That's not reasonable. So you're really good at math. Why don't you go into accounting? And I
Yeah.
said, okay, great. So I did accounting and I got a bachelor's and master's. I passed my CPA exam and I practiced for a couple of years and absolutely hated it because I like
Right.
talking to people. I don't want, and not saying that all accountants are like sitting behind a desk, but for me, that's what it felt like in my experience. And I just didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
So I tried a bunch of different things. I went back to school to be a teacher. That
Mhm.
was at that time I had already had 6 children. And so we adopted our youngest three. But to have someone take care of 6 kids while you're gone all day, I was paying my babysitter more than I was making.
Right.
So then, trying to figure out, so I've pivoted many times and finally landed on something I absolutely love, which is speaking and writing. And who would have
Mhm.
thought that an accountant could actually write? But
Mhm.
that's so in terms of superpowers, I would say patience. I
Mhm.
would say I just had shoulder surgery, so my husband would say pain tolerance. I quietly suffer. I don't like to complain about things. Um,
Mhm.
I am very well patience, but I'm also very calming. So like when a friend is struggling with something, they'll call me because they're like, Simone can help. She's the one who can figure it out.
Yeah.
So I would say those are like my biggest ones. I mean, and being a connector. I love connecting people because I love talking to people. I love learning about people. I sit on the plane next to somebody and I always strike up a conversation because you never know what you're going to learn.
Yeah, Simone, we sound like we should be friends. We're
Sounds
definitely in
good.
the same space for a reason, right? So, like, you have 6 kids. That's not normal either, and you have 3 adopted. I think you said
Yeah.
well, I think I read that you have 1 from Korea and 1 from, where from? You have adopted
Two two for me, two children from Ethiopia that are now 21 and 17 and our 18-year-old is from South Korea and then our older three which are 22, 25 and 29 look like me
I
and my
love
husband.
this. I love this, and so what brings you the greatest joy in that? Because you seems like there's something in your heart that comes out through your voice when you're talking about your kids.
Mm. I loved every minute of it. I mean, I love the
Mm.
chaos, being honest. I'm almost an empty nester. Next year I'll be an empty nester and it's crazy to think that I've had kids in my house straight for 30 years
Yeah.
and now everybody's going to be out. But every part of it has been so much fun seeing, especially like when we adopted our son Ari. So he's from Ethiopia and he came home when he was 4.5 years old. And
Mhm.
just seeing him experience different things for the first time, right? The idea
Mm.
of running water and the toilet. And there were so many things that he hadn't seen. The light switch, oh my gosh, 1,000 times a day, he would flip the switch, just being like,
Wow.
Mom, 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 because that was the only word he could say. So,
Yeah.
really, and watching them grow up into incredible humans, because I truly think that out of all the things I do, that's my important role is to raise great humans because the world needs more of that.
Yeah. And again, not every day people go off and adopt people from different countries. Now, because this is just we just can't skip over this. What was what was this about? Like, tell me, were you always a person who said, I have 3 kids and now I want 3 more kids from different countries? What was that?
So it's actually funny. My husband wanted a big family.
Mhm.
I have one sister. He has one sister. When we first got married, he's like, I think we should have 6 kids. I'm like, I think we should have one. And then we had one, and Jacob was an amazing baby. But my husband's like, I think we're good with one. And I was like, oh no, now I think I want more. And then there was like 4 years between our first 2 kids. I wasn't getting pregnant. And so we started talking about adoption then. Then I went to see an infertility specialist, and he said, tell your friends I'm the best infertility specialist in the world because you're already pregnant. Obviously, that
Wow.
that ended the adoption process there. But when we moved to Florida after we had our second child, And then when we had our third child, we had a picture made of the kids. And this sounds like cheesy, but in the picture, it's like Jacob was standing behind the bassinet. Emma was standing on one side of the bassinet, and Olivia was in the middle, right in the bassinet. And it just looked like something was missing. And so I said to my husband, "What do you think?" And he said, "You are not having another baby." I said, "No, I am not having another baby. No way.
Yeah.
I'm a miserable pregnant person." And I said, "What do you think if we go back to that adoption conversation?" And he said, "I'm up for it." And so we decided to start, follow through. And that's when we adopted our son Noah from South Korea. And he was a baby, he was 4 months old,
Wow.
but we just felt like we could, right? It's not like we're super religious, or we just know there are so many amazing kids in this world just waiting for a family to love them. And we thought, hey, we can be that family.
Yeah. I love that. And I think I read in your most recent Instagram post that you've had this surgery and your kids were so great in the first week, but then they started getting a little spicy in
Oh
the
my,
second and third week.
yeah,
Isn't that how it is? You know,
I
you
know.
love them, but they did we just not raise you and do all these things? You better come over here and get me my drink.
I know. I'm like, they knew 6 weeks, right? Like I
Yeah.
can't fold laundry. I can't move my
Yeah.
left arm. And
You
they're
just had shoulder
week
surgery.
week one, they're like all into it because they were so worried. Like if something happens to mom, by week two, they're like, "Oh, really? Like again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need ice all the time.
Yes.
I could use a glass of water every once in a while. And yeah, I
Yes.
need some help, my friends."
Yes. I
So
think every mom can relate to this.
yeah.
But Simone, there's been something that I really feel you've been wanting to share because there's obviously some extraordinary aspects of you that you want to share with the world. And obviously, Olivia holds enough weight to have you guys do this podcast together. Which came first, the book or the podcast?
The book. The book came
Okay.
first.
And what did you want people to know about this? What were you trying to get? What is the reader supposed to get out of this extraordinary, unordinary you experience?
Really understanding that you you're capable of anything that you believe as long as you put in the work. First, you have to
Mhm,
ask yourself what you want to. So that's part of my second book. Actually, comes out in February, and it's really based on my real method, which is respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And
mhm,
the idea of, for me, what came about with when I started putting all these stories together about my life and other people's lives was really helping people realize what they're capable of. Because a lot of times we limit ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves, what we say about ourselves, the words we use, they're limiters, right? I mean,
mhm,
for a long time, I used to say, "Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom," or "I'm just Rob's wife," using just to justify my life. And
mhm,
I see it in so many people now that I'm aware of it. So I always say, drop the just, because this is who you are. Whether
mhm.
you're a stay at home mom, whether you're a manager, whether you're a podcast host, administrative assistant, whatever you are, I am this, because as soon as you start saying those words that limit you, that's what you start to believe.
Yeah. And you have an interest in helping moms, correct? Or what who are is it that you ultimately want to serve in getting this message out? Is it women or is it moms or do you have a combination of both?
It's a bit of a combination. I mean, high achieving women, a lot of times when we talk about women who work that also have children, it kind of doubles it, right? So you have that sense of guilt that you're not spending enough time with your kids, or that you're taking too much time away from work. So it's that understanding of, you are doing a great job, right? And we are just way too hard on ourselves, and we put so much pressure on ourselves to think that we have to do everything for everyone, and then we forget about ourselves.
Mhm. So what do you think is the issue? What's the foundational stopping point for a lot of women in your experience and in your research?
It's self-doubt. I mean, 100%.
And where does
We
that come from?
I believe it comes from some kind of experience that we had earlier in life. So whether you had a teacher that told you that you weren't smart enough, or that there's no way you would get into this program. I spoke to a woman earlier today, and she was telling me how her teacher, when she was in high school, her advisor said, "No, you're not going to get into the one of the really big." She had great grades, one of the really prestigious schools. It will be way too much pressure for you. So, why don't you take a step back a little bit and rethink your choices? Okay, great. So, if the person that's supposed to be helping me is telling me that I'm not good enough,
Right.
then how do I feel good about myself? So, and like I said, for me, that was having an abusive boyfriend in high school who made me feel like I was not enough, and I never dealt with it. So that just carried
Mhm.
on as I got older and older until I finally said, why am I holding this in? Like, why aren't I talking about it? For me, that worked. For some people,
Mhm.
that won't work, but it's the idea of dealing with what you're struggling with. But yeah, that idea that we struggle with self doubt. I mean, even across the board, men and women, 80% of people struggle with low self esteem, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it starts with how we see ourselves.
Right. Foundationally, we at the Rise with Diana podcast, we talk about what happens behind the scenes is what people will see in front of other people. So we're
Hmm.
big on, what is it is your daily practice?
Mm.
What is it that keeps you settled? What is it that keeps you focused? And what tools do you use to help realign yourself?
So every day I do positive affirmations and I do evening gratitudes,
Mhm.
depending on the day. I mean, I have simple ones like I am brave, I am bold, I am beautiful, whatever I need in the moment. Like if I'm going to be speaking on stage, I'm going to be like, this, you're going to kill it, like your voice is there. Um, but that's every morning. And I years ago I would have said that doesn't work. Come on, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make you feel better. I was wrong. I mean, and there's lots of science to back it up to that shows how you talk to yourself. I mean, you see it with professional athletes, how they boost themselves before they're going into a meet or a match. Um, so positive affirmations. The other thing is I have my little mindset trick that I do when I start to get that voice inside my head, which I call Control Alt Delete, which is back in the day. Doesn't It's not the same thing anymore. There's a different it means something different these days. So,
Mhm.
but it used to be how we would reset our computers and
Mhm.
when it would freeze. And so I use that as a mindset trick. So basically understanding that we have the control part is being aware of our thoughts. Like when we start having those negative thoughts, understanding that we actually can change them. We can control them, right? We can tell ourselves that's not real. That's a negative story that we're telling ourselves. The
Mhm.
alt is about changing, right? So instead of saying, I can't, why not say, I can? Instead of saying, what if I fail? How about when I succeed? You do that over and over again, it changes how you see yourself. And then finally, delete. I mean, just like a computer program. I mean, think about when your computer is going really slow. What do? You close out some of those programs, you delete something off your hard drive, whatever you need to do. Same thing with your mind. When you have things that are holding you back, you delete them. When you have people that are bringing negativity to your life, you have to delete them. Like that's part of the whole thing. But it's easy to use that in a really quick thing when you start walking into an event and you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't look good enough to be here. It's really easy to put that into place.
Yeah, so talk about that woman who's in this corporate job, right? So what we deal with is women who might have to hit the control alt delete from the morning and the evening and the
Hmm.
day
Yeah.
because they have a jacked up boss or they have a department that is really reeling. We have people who are dealing with this whole anti-DEI movement. A lot of people are losing jobs. How would you help someone who's struggling with this? What would be some of the first things that you would help her as she's dealing with that?
So I would say a lot of times we think that we're alone in our struggles, so we're not even willing to discuss them. I mean, I think that's like step number one. First, we have to be aware of them. Then we have to be willing to talk about them, whether you have a coach or a therapist or a friend. But when we don't talk about what we're struggling with, it's really hard to move forward. Um, and really understanding that everybody struggles because we do, and we can never walk in someone else's shoes. The idea that if so and so is having this issue, it's going to be the same answer for everybody. It's not, right?
Mhm.
So, sorry, get some water.
Yeah, half a sip of water. We all need some water.
I need water. Um, yeah, and really we put so much pressure on ourselves. So I think especially women in corporate, we're trying to make it to the next level where I can give you an example about my mom. So my mom was a physician. She went to medical school in 1961. There were five women in her medical school class out of 120 people. And her entire career was based on being told she was working in a man's world and that her voice didn't matter.
Right.
But she didn't stop, right? She kept going. She retired in her late 60s. Um, she, it's funny because I talked to her about positive affirmations and she said, "Well, I have this poem that I used to say to myself." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's an affirmation, mom."
Yeah.
But
Did she really? She didn't have any?
no,
Did she
she
say, I
didn't
don't
think
have
so. Yeah,
that.
I know. But I think that is very true for women is like we have to talk to ourselves like we would our best friend. I think that's a Brene
Mm,
Brown quote, but the idea that the way we talk to ourselves and the way we talk about ourselves, really affects how we move forward in the world. And every woman listening deserves a seat at the table, but we
right.
can't be afraid to use our voices.
Right. Because so many people find that they get that seat, but then they don't speak up. In my experience, I have had so many people who get that title, they get that level, and then they don't speak. They don't share their voice. What would you say is the root cause of someone finally getting where they're going to
Yeah.
go, but then they don't speak up?
Yeah, I mean they're afraid they're going to fail. They're afraid they're going to be ridiculed. But the whole point is like
Mm,
you've made it. And again, everybody deserves a seat at the table, but you're already there. Like you're there because you deserve to be there. And if you're not using your voice, then you're doing a disservice to yourself because you have so much to add. Um, it's interesting when you look at statistics of when we talk about sitting at the table that
right.
30% of the people in a boardroom do 70% of the talking. So
Mhm.
it's what about the other people? And what I like to talk about is the idea of kitchen table leadership. So the idea that so much of what we do, so much of what we decide really happens around the kitchen table. We've been sold this narrow view of what leadership is. If you don't have the title, if you're not at the table, then you're not considered a leader. But I completely disagree. I think that we're all leaders. We have to see it within ourselves. So
Mhm.
it's bringing it back to understanding that modeling, I mean, one of the things is that modeling matters more than managing. So if you're sitting around a table and you're not using your voice, the people that are around there too might feel like, well, I shouldn't share anything either. So the more we put ourselves out there, the more other people will put themselves out there as well.
Mm. And also to that end, because you it's such a good point, because a lot of times what we talk about in our community is that not necessarily always the verbal voice is the speaking up. There are
Hmm.
other aspects of asserting yourself within your work that you do. And one of the things that I always talk about is there's a continuum of conversation that happens regarding a particular point or issue that requires your feedback. It requires your commitment to getting to the end of the resolution of a particular issue. In your experience, what do you see? Do you see people kind of like ghost out and then they don't come back, or they just kind of give up? Or do you help coach women in helping them get to the resolve of a particular issue to be the extraordinary, unordinary person that they're called to be?
Yeah, it's really yes, I do. And the again, it's taking ownership for who we are and not
Mm,
trying to be anybody else, not trying to compare ourselves to other people. We have our own path. It is a leadership path for all of us,
yeah,
but it might just take a different amount of time or different steps.
yeah.
And so many women like to give up sometimes before they've even started because
Mhm.
they're so worried about what might happen. And something I love to say is that if you don't ask, you'll never know. If you don't
Right,
apply, the answer is always no. So
correct.
it's putting yourself out there no matter what. And okay, so you get negative feedback. Do you just stop? no, you keep going because that's how growth happens when we make ourselves uncomfortable, when we do things that expand. I mean, if we're doing the same thing every day, we're not growing as a person, we're not learning. So
Right.
I think it's so important that we constantly put ourselves out there.
Absolutely. So, before we end, I want to ask you, like you and Olivia have, it's
Mm.
Olivia, correct? Have,
Olivia, yeah.
and what's the name of your podcast?
Her unshakable confidence.
Her Unshakable. What is it that you primarily find yourself like giving to the world through your conversation with Olivia? And then how did that start? Did y'all just say, we just started a
Uh,
podcast?
so what we started with just the two of us. So we didn't have guests. We did, I don't know, probably 40 episodes that were just the two of us. And just based on our conversations, things that were happening that we thought, things that we're struggling with that could help other people. And, we definitely have different perspectives. I'm 53, she's 22. And I mean, it's a really fun conversation. The fact that my 22-year-old, I got 1 out of 6 that want to do a podcast with me.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
you striking up good.
I know. But yeah, so we really thought we started having these conversations and we said, you know, we should record these. So we started doing like Instagram lives and then people would say, "Oh, you guys should start a podcast." We're like, "Okay, let's start a podcast. Let's see how it goes." And we're 2 years into it. And so far, we do every other week, just the two of us. And then the next week is with a guest. And we've only had women on. But we are considering having some men on because men keep asking to be on. But just to get a different take, because again, the whole goal is the title, Her Unshakable Confidence, is for Olivia to build unshakable confidence. And it really has been amazing to watch her transformation since she started this. So she is about to start her second year of law school.
Mm,
And she said she has no problem now standing up in front of the class and speaking. And
mm,
also, if the professor is saying something where she either doesn't understand it or she disagrees, she has no problem speaking up because she understands how important it is for her to use her voice. So
mm.
it has been really transformational in our relationship, but also for both of us because, and it's so fun. Like, especially
Yeah,
when she's home right now, but she leaves next week for the school year. And so it's like we know, like every week, we at least have a solid 1 hour check in every week, which is amazing.
that's fantastic. What's your definition of unshakable confidence?
It's really about being able to be who you are wherever you are. It's not changing for the
Mhm,
situation you're in. It doesn't mean that you're not afraid. It
mhm.
means that you keep going anyways. So
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, unshakable, that's too overwhelming. That would never be me." But the whole point is the one foot in front of the other. It's
Mhm.
doing things even if you're scared, even if you think you're going to fail. You just keep putting yourself out there and trying again.
Yeah, I really think as the folks are listening here, that has such a deep relevance to what we talk about here, which is we believe in authentic power.
Mm.
And as you're continuing to step forward, and it sounds like the real that you're getting ready to
Yeah.
publish what, in February 2026, right?
Yep.
The real book that you are coming out. We like being real here,
Yeah.
right? In
Yeah.
any way that you do it, just be real. So thank you because this is so needed in the world, and we need it. If this by the recording of this message here, we're in the year of 2025, and it's a pretty tumultuous time in July of 2025, soon to be August. And we're grateful, though, that you're in this world, that you're doing the work that you are called to do. And do you feel this is your calling? Do you feel you're
Oh,
being called to do this? Yeah.
100%. Like I said, I
Mm,
have tried many things in my life and didn't have the passion for them. I mean,
mm,
yes, I was a teacher and that was amazing, but I still,
mm.
now it's the idea that I can help other women feel comfortable in their skin and put themselves out there and do the work that they're called to do because they believe in themselves. So
Yeah.
I absolutely feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Simone, thank you for the kindred understanding of our calling. We definitely are walking a path where more women need to have, and I just talked about this today, these delusional mindsets, which really are visionaries,
Mm,
right? Because you have to be somewhat delusional to believe that there's something more when you are surrounded about seems like chaos, right?
hmm
But you believe that there's something more. So thank you for putting your voice in the world. Thank you for the book that you've published. Thank you for the work you do with your daughter and for really diving in and being a light to young people around the world and bringing them into your home, raising them up as your children, as they are your children. What's one last thing you would like to leave with our listeners?
mm. I would just love to say when you change the way you see yourself, the world around you will change. So believe in yourself. You are powerful. You deserve to be at the table. And it just starts with, looking in the mirror and saying, I am important. I am valued.
I love it. And where can our listeners get a hold and follow you?
Uh, Best is on my website, SimoneKnego.com, SimoneKnego. I'm the only Simone Knego in the world. So
Come on, Simone.
even if you spell it wrong, you'll find me. But
Yeah,
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then our YouTube channel, which is Her Unshakable Confidence. So, and the
yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
And y'all, you really need to spend a little time. She's got a great story about horseback riding. We didn't even get into all those other things and her work with the Jewish Federation. We thank you so much, Simone, for the work that you do. And thank you for being on the Rise with Diana podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, listeners. Please like and subscribe. Let us know what you loved about the podcast. And we'll see you in the next podcast. Have a great day.